Hi, this is Brandon Crane from the original Stephen King's It miniseries, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. On today's show, I have special guest Brandon Crane with me. He played young Ben Hanscom in the miniseries for Stephen King's It. Thank you again for joining me today, Brandon, on the show.
Hey, my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Hey, now, first, as far as like the miniseries goes, or actually just the book and it itself, how were you first introduced to Stephen King's It, and then what attracted you to the project that led you to auditioning for the role in the 1990 made-for-TV series?
I had a neighbor who was a couple of years older than I am, and he was kind of like my pop culture ambassador, right?
Yep.
He was into all the cool stuff. So I looked to him for pop culture stuff, and so he had passed me a copy of It to read, and I think I had just turned 14. So I read it, and it took me a while, but I got through it, and I think I finished reading it for about, maybe 2 months, and I got a phone call that they were casting for It. And I thought, this couldn't be any more fortuitous, right? I didn't say that when I was 14, but looking back, I was like, no way, I've got to do this. I've got to audition for this. Because I think Ben really struck a chord with me personally on a lot of different levels. So I wanted this bad. And so I went through the audition process, and it took a long time, but eventually I got it.
And, what was that, audition process like? And then, what was it just like meeting the other members of the Losers Club for the first time?
Yeah, it's kind of a trip. I remember going to the normal audition and feeling like I did a really good job. I was reading the scene where I meet Eddie in the Barrens for the first time, and we talk about our parents. We talk about our dads. And I remember walking away from there feeling like I did a great job. Like, this was the best audition of my life. And I didn't hear anything for a while. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the business. And, as long as you're happy with your audition, it's a win.
Yep.
But I heard back from them again, and they wanted me to come in and read. And I remember it was at Green Epstein's office this time, and I remember sitting down with another kid and reading that same scene at I think it was Jim Green's desk. And again, I felt like, man, I had a great audition. And then I didn't hear anything again. And I'd say, a week is too long. If they like you, they lock you right away. Or they put you on what they call a veil, where they say, hey, be available for these dates just in case they decide to book you, right?
Yep.
So I didn't get any of that. So I got a weird phone call to come in and do a chemistry reading. And they put a whole bunch of kids on tape. So they would just they'd assemble random groups together just to see how, the chemistry was between various actors. And I noticed I was the only fat kid there. So it was weird. It was a Saturday too. That's really rare. And I just remember asking the camera operator, hey, where are the other fat kids? And he said, well, I know they're looking at someone in Vancouver and they're looking at someone in Texas, but I think it's going to be you. And they never give that up. Nobody ever gives that up.
Yeah.
in an audition. And then some time goes by and I didn't hear a thing. I heard nothing. And I thought, man, of course. Didn't happen. That's okay. At least I got in front of some really cool people and I still had Wonder Years to look forward to.
Yep.
And then I got the phone call, and it wasn't a week before I was up in Vancouver getting my haircut and meeting John Ritter, and that was great, and some of the other losers.
So they just really wanted to kind of make you wait there.
I guess, but I think they were really being deliberate about assembling the right team.
Yeah.
And if that takes time, then so be it. I was happy to wait.
Yeah, in the end, it definitely paid off. And was there, as far as, the rest of the group, was there someone that you initially connected with more than maybe like the others in the group, or?
That's kind of hard to say. I mean, I think at first it was Brandis because we met first. And then I had something in common with Adam. We were both fans of the Muppet Show and Monty Python and things like that. So yep. I think we all connected in our own special way. I don't think there were any cliques of besties or anything. I know Seth and Ben hung out a little bit more because they were older than we were, and they had different interests. But we were all a pretty tight unit, pretty solid.
And I know you said that you had read the book, initially right before you ended up getting casted, but were you a fan of the horror genre going into this role, or was this kind of your first experience, reading the book and then getting this, or were you a fan of anything else before you got this?
No, I mean, that was definitely the first horror book I'd ever read. And truth be told, one of the last. I mean, I'm not a super fan of the genre. Although, the visual adaptations, the movies and things like that, I've always enjoyed.
Yep.
I mean, even when I was young, we'd go rent, Fright Night, and we'd rent, and that's another reason I was stoked to work with Tommy Lee Wallace.
Yep.
But it was kind of a small world. I watched all of those movies, at least, the ones that have been released to date. And I know I'd seen John before in, I think it was like Children of the Corn or something like that. I'm trying to remember, but my friends and I always loved to watch those movies. So we'd have sleepovers and watch that until 4 a.m. And so I wasn't afraid of working in it. I was more afraid of sucking, to be honest. No, really. I mean, these kids were intimidated. They all had good resumes. Seth Green was really on the, really starting to break out.
Yep.
And, Jonathan Brandis had carried a feature, and Emily Perkins was a big deal. She's an amazingly gifted actor. And so it was a little nerve-wracking for me because I'd always just been the butt of jokes, or I'd mostly done comedy.
Yeah, so a little bit different.
I mean, I was a one-liner guy, and I was terrified of not being good enough, not being able to carry my weight with these other actors.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Now, as far as something I just kind of thought would be interesting, Pennywise, he preys on his victim's fear. Is there anything that you are afraid of, Brandon?
Me personally, What am I afraid of? I'm actually afraid of the ocean. I'm not a fan of it. I've swam in it. I've done that, but it's just not my favorite thing. I think mostly because of drowning. I have an irrational fear of like riptides. Yeah, but don't tell anybody.
Will do.
Yeah. That's my biggest fear. It's not heights. It's not jumping out of a plane. It's not air travel. It's not. It's literally the ocean.
Well, hey, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, I won't go. I'm up here in New Hampshire on the East Coast, and even out here, I still won't go too far into the water. Just afraid of sharks. So
no, and all you have to do is YouTube whale pooping, and then you realize, you know what? That's not for me. Not for me.
No,
seriously, do it.
No, then I probably won't want to go back in the water again.
Nope.
And in the miniseries, for it, you played obviously the kid version of Ben, and then John Ritter, he ended up playing the adult version. What was it just like working with him, and what did you take away from that whole experience?
He was great. John Ritter, I met him the day that I got my hair cut, and they were shooting the scene where the adult Beverly leaves her house. She escapes, from the clutches of Mrs. Kirsch and almost gets run over by the van. And I got to meet John there for the first time, and I think we had quite a bit of time together compared to the other kids, and I think it was necessary because we looked the least alike of all the pairings, I think. And so we really had to find some things to connect us, like mannerisms, some speech.
Yep.
And the way he approached that and the way he broke it down for me was incredible. Like, I'd worked a lot, but I'd never had this kind of responsibility, and I'd never had to approach anything with this amount of care and caution. And he taught me a lot, and all I taught him was Tetris, but that's okay. On breaks, we always had our Game Boys out, and he'd check in to say hi every once in a while, and it's a totally unfair trade, but he wore the hat of the mentor, really, really well. I appreciate it.
I'm sure that
I'll never forget it.
It must have helped you out too. You mentioned just a few minutes ago that being extremely nervous to work on this set. So I'm sure did that kind of help you a little bit, getting like that advice from him?
It really did. It did. But I think the nerves were calmed. The very first thing I shot for this was when I'm climbing down the ladder and I pick up the pom-poms.
Yep.
Or we see the pom-poms. And that was the very first thing we shot, or at least I shot. And I think once Tommy said cut, after the first take, the nerves went away. I thought, okay, I can do this. Yeah.
And what I think is, interesting too. So, kind of fast forward to 2017, we get the film adaptation of it, where Jeremy Ray Taylor played the role that you originally starred in. Was it weird seeing someone else take on that role? And did you guys get to meet and discuss the character before that film's release?
It was weird to think that someone was doing something that I had already done. Like I'd already originated that role.
Yep.
And I don't mean to come off like that's mine, but it was the one thing that I was, proud of, and I'd had my footprint on it. And looking back, having trained to do the work after I did the work, I realized its significance.
Yep.
And the thought of someone doing something that I originated was really weird. But I reached out to him almost immediately when they announced the cast, and just said, "Hey man, I'm rooting for you." And he said, "Hey, I'll try not to let you down." And there's no way he could have. So I've been rooting for him throughout the entire production process, and we've been able to, exchange messages back and forth, of support, and when the movie was released, I was there opening night. I know most of the other losers were too. Just to see. It was kind of weird. I mean, I'm about to watch something that's more or less going to make mine obsolete. And that's what I was thinking. And I don't think that was entirely irrational, but I was so happy because he created his own Ben.
Yep.
It was a completely different Ben anyway. And I think he did an amazing job. He did an amazing job. And that kid is so... I mean, he's an awesome natural actor. And he's also got great comedic timing as well. Like that whole scene with him and Beverly where he's wrestling between the bike and the diorama and still trying to look cool. I haven't seen anyone. If you really look at that, that is pretty incredible execution. So,
yeah.
I was happy. I walked out of there completely happy, and I sent Andy Muschietti a message just saying, "Dude, this exceeded my wildest expectations. Congratulations."
I'm sure just with Jeremy too, I'm sure that probably, even if maybe he might not have, I don't know if he said anything, but I'm sure that probably meant a lot, having you reach out to him too, just where you had originated that role, get to talk to you and kind of get,
Yeah.
your approval, as well.
No, and he definitely took it. I think that the wisest thing I had to say, which wasn't wise at all, was, "Hey, don't let the clown push you around too much." But he did a great job. He did a fantastic job, and I know that Jared Blanker and Nicholas Hamilton had a few discussions as well about Henry Bowers.
Yep.
So, it was kind of nice for them to look to us a little bit.
Yeah, and
even though,
yeah,
they didn't have to.
A little bit of passing of the torch there too. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That you guys all got to connect on that, and and then kind of jumping back to the mini series. So you also got to work with another legendary actor, Tim Curry, who gave an iconic performance as Pennywise the Clown. What was it like working with him, and did he end up scaring any of you guys while you were on set?
I think everyone had their own experience with Tim. Mine was pretty easy, I think. When we had that confrontation out on the lake,
yep.
And he's slowly turning into the clown from my father. He'd already shot his bit, and I was walking from the Barrens because that little stream actually led out right into the lake, where Pennywise was standing. So we were walking through the Barrens set, and I was on my way out to the lake, and he was on his way in from the lake. So we were kind of like passing ships, but I was already a fan. So the PA that was walking me to the set made sure to introduce me, and he was very humble and kind. There wasn't anything scary at all. But I was a little starstruck. I mean, I don't get that way, but with him, it was different because he had so much work behind him, and so many things that I'd seen, and it was really an awesome experience. Yeah, but not scary for me, not at all.
Did you happen to hear if like anybody else had any moments that he like possibly might have scared anybody on set, or?
Well, I know when Emily did her piece for the Pennywise documentary, I think there's a piece in the trailer where she mentions that every time he had passed her, or they had passed him, he's sitting in his chair, he would sneer at them, or he would hiss or do something as they were walking by. But I don't remember any of that. We didn't shoot a lot together. We had our little confrontation, our individual confrontation, and then we worked in the sewer for a couple of days with him on the final fight. And what was amazing to me about that experience, again, looking back as an actor, there was so much to learn from that, because you're looking at a guy who is a legend, in his own right, an incredible actor, and he's just Tim. He's like, okay, do you want me to try this? Do you want me to stand here? Okay, there's some great footage that Bart Nixon has that he took on VHS that's going to make it into the documentary.
Nice.
Where it's him picking up Ben Heller, who's Stan, pushing him up against the wall, and he's so gentle, saying, hey, you want me to shoot like this? Okay, does this work for you? And then we'd rehearse it, and Tim would kind of mark it, but he'd be a kind of Pennywise. And when I say mark, I mean, do it at about 50% intensity.
Yeah.
And then when Tommy would say action for a take, this switch would flip, and he would become this, power plant of energy. And, what they say about the give and take of energy as actors is very real. And it was made real for me then, because even though I know it's just Tim Curry in a crazy nose and, a weird costume, he was definitely frightening. He exuded so much energy, you couldn't help but be affected by it.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I know growing up as a kid that was kind of one of the movies that I remember everyone in school that was kind of like the scary movie that everyone was like, oh, you have to watch this. It's the scariest thing like you'll ever see. So I can't can't imagine like kind of being there in that moment, working with him. That must have been quite the experience.
It was, and those days are long. I mean, especially for that shoot, we worked many hours every day, and for weeks, and that's only a testament to that energy. The fact that we could be on like hour 8, or hour 9 or 10, and for us to still be able to keep up with him is because of his energy, I think. And it was just it's a great experience looking back. I cannot believe how much time has passed.
No, I definitely have a whole new level of appreciation for when you're saying something like this as well. Just because I actually this past summer I had my first experience being just an extra on a film set for an upcoming Adam Sandler movie, and like I was only there like the one day, but we were there from those like 6-7 in the morning, and we left about like 8 p.m. So I can't imagine, obviously that's only one day, so doing that for, however many months or whatever. So that's pretty impressive.
It gets tedious. It really does. But when you've got the camaraderie with the people that you're working with, it does make it exciting. I mean, there's nothing exciting about movies, honestly. It's not particularly glamorous. It's not, it's not as easy as you would think it is. Yeah. I mean, because the expectation of you is to continually be able to perform at the same level throughout the entire day. So you got to witness some of that.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And now, very heads up, guys, maybe slight spoilers if you haven't seen It Chapter 2. Obviously...
The cat's out of the bag.
It Chapter
it's
2
fine.
Just, is obviously in theaters now, and you have a little cameo in the film. How did that, come about?
Well, when the trailer dropped in, I think it was July. Maybe it was July. I reached out to Andy and out of the blue on Facebook and just said, wow, I'm so excited to see what you've come up with. Because, man, for years, people have been threatening to remake this movie. And for some reason, at the last minute, it just never materialized. There's this sort of usual, people leaving the project because of the usual differences, et cetera, and this one really stuck. And I don't think it could have been in better hands. So I sent him a message, not expecting him to see it or reply, and it wasn't 10 minutes. And he said, "Oh my God, it's you! You were my favorite loser, and I thank you so much for your compliment." And we just ended up staying in touch.
That's
so
cool.
When I got home from watching the movie at the theater, I texted him, "Hey, dude, this was amazing. This was way beyond my wildest expectations." And he said, "Oh, that's great. I'm so happy you enjoyed it. You should do a cameo in part 2." Like out of the blue. And so I said, "Really? Okay. The universe works this way on Facebook." And he immediately started coming up with ideas, of where it would fit. Maybe I could be an employee of Beverly's who has a secret crush on her, or, Ricky Lee at the bar, when, the way Ben is introduced as an adult in the book.
Yep.
There were all these different ideas, and I thought, wait a minute, this is nuts. I've got to be getting trolled. So I stopped and I reached out to him on Instagram, because that's where he was verified, right? And at the risk of embarrassing myself, obviously. I mean, what an awesome troll job that would have been, right? Yeah, a really dedicated fan account. He emailed me back and said, "No, I'm the troll. You should definitely do a cameo." And I said, "That's amazing." And so we stayed in touch, and we kept it a secret. And a year and maybe a month later, I was standing in front of the camera in Toronto for the first time in 10 years, doing that scene for Ben's reveal. And I just couldn't believe it.
I know.
It really worked out that way. I mean, I had to do an audition. I had to tape the scene and send it in to him so he could pitch the idea to New Line, because it had to be right.
Yeah.
It couldn't be gratuitous. It couldn't be gratuitous. I mean, you know how much flack the Ghostbusters movie had, with all of those cameos. It confuses the universes, and I know they very much wanted to keep the universes separate, as they should. It's not a remake as much as it is another adaptation.
Yeah, exactly.
So the fact that they invited me into that universe it's amazing. And the friends that I've made out of that experience, I couldn't be happier.
And kind of going off that too, you mentioned that it had been a little while since you had been in front of the camera. What was that experience like getting, back in front of the camera this time?
It was nerve-wracking at first, because kind of like starting your first day at school. I was supposed to get up. I was actually supposed to leave the apartment at 4:30 in the morning.
Yep. Bright and early.
Yeah. So trying to get to sleep before your first day of school for something of this magnitude was
not easy.
Was a feat in and of itself, right? But I was prepared. I was ready, and for me, it was a lot like that first scene I shot in the miniseries. Once we rehearsed it early in the morning before the sun came up in the office, and then we went back to the base camp and we did the whole hair and makeup wardrobe thing, and but it worked out. And it really worked out.
What was, as far as just like the two sets too, so versus the set of It Chapter 2, what was it like compared to, working on like the miniseries?
The scale of the thing was different, remarkably different. I mean, we shot this like a feature. We shot the miniseries to film. So, I mean, there's, the usual, crew of 40 hanging out on the other side of the camera. But this was a different machine. I mean, the technology is different. I think the atmosphere was a little bit different. It's definitely a new era, and it may just be Andy's set. I don't know. But everyone was, top of their game. There weren't any angry old stagehands. There weren't, everybody was truly excited to be there, and it was certainly a well-oiled machine. So, it was a different experience, a different vibe on the set. I'm not besmirching the old one. It's just a different game now.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that were there are just different. It's just a different era. Era altogether.
Yeah, and like you said, the technology and everything's changed.
Yeah, 100%. The way that they can light something doesn't make you boil in your suit. The way they can, honestly, and the camera equipment, the setups for all that stuff. I mean, they're not old Panavision cameras anymore. It's like it's an Arri Alexa that they can put on a little robot cart, and it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. It was a much different experience, but still very, very much exciting.
And kind of tying into that too, obviously you got to work with both, Tommy on the miniseries, and then you worked, Andy for Cameo in Chapter 2. Just
right.
Kind of comparing those experiences, what was it like working with both of them, and how do their, styles, kind of differ in your opinion?
Well, I think from I think conceptually, Andy is probably one of those savants. He has a style. And I had dinner with him a couple nights before we shot, and we talked all things It. And one of the things that I was compelled to say to him was, dude, you get this movement thing. You know, anytime he uses Javier Botet, he's a master of movement, and I think that kind of thing is what is unsettling, I think, most about his work. But he has a very unique style. I don't think Tommy had the budget to communicate his style, which I know he definitely had, because he's also an incredible artist.
Yep.
Tommy was constrained by the network. He was constrained by censorship. He was constrained by production time and budget. And Andy had the keys to the kingdom. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, I would have.
That's the main difference. But I mean, Andy is an artist of incredible, exceptional integrity. Tommy Lee Wallace is also a musician. He's also a stunt person. He's also an actor. And they're both actors-centric directors. They know how to get the performances they want out of the actors that they have. They're not just about lining up the shot. They're tapped into the emotion too. And they're both fantastic.
Yeah, no, and I love. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, and very similar in those respects.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love the original, the miniseries and the, It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. I think it would have been, when you were kind of, just touching on it as far as like the budget goes with, and then censorship with the original one, it would have been really interesting to see if that was a, feature film and didn't have some of the this censorship and maybe had slightly a bigger budget, what Tommy would have been able to do with that.
Oh, I mean, I know what Tommy could have done with it.
And I'm excited for Andy too. I know
it would have been a completely different cast. First of all, I probably wouldn't have gotten it if it wasn't for television. Because most of us, with the exception of Seth and a lot of the supporting characters, they were all TV people predominantly.
Yep.
So it would have been a completely different animal altogether. So I'm glad
that
it wasn't a feature then, and I wholly embrace the features now.
Yep. And yeah, no, I can't wait for. I know Andy's kind of been talking about it. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to actually put that together, talking about doing a ultimate director's cut of putting both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 together and kind of editing them together. I'm really hoping that comes to fruition because that'll be pretty cool to see on Blu-ray or whatever when that gets released. So we'll see as far as that goes.
A super cut. Nobody's ever done that.
Yeah.
It's not like that. And it would be great to see if that's, more than something that's mostly fan-driven. I mean, it's one thing for a director to say, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
It's another thing for fans to say, yeah, well, Andy said he'd love to do it, so they're going to do it. It's, we'll see.
Yeah, I can't imagine just as a fan thinking of the amount of editing that would have to, go into that is just mind-boggling. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah,
you'd have to rescore it. You'd have to do so much. But I'm sure it could be done.
Yep.
The fans are definitely there. The support from the fans is definitely there for that.
Oh, for sure. And just kind of a fun question, as far as, we're coming up actually, the fall season's here, Halloween's right around the corner. I'm curious, did you have any, fall Halloween traditions for, you growing up? And then do you have any plans for the season and the holiday this year?
I used to go to this thing at Knott's Berry Farm, and they're doing it at all the Universal Studios parks now too, but it's like a Halloween haunt. And they shut the park down, the amusement park down at like 6:00, and they spook it up. They put cobwebs and they hire 1,000 monsters to roam the streets, and they kind of skew the rides into horror themes, and that was my SoCal tradition for Halloween. But now we just do the trick or treat thing. I've got 2 girls, 7 and 13, and they get dressed up, and we we do the suburban Halloween.
There you go.
We go trick or treating, and then we get sick on candy, and then wake up the next morning and get sick on candy again. That's our tradition.
There you go. Well, is there anything else that you would like to say to all of the fans out there, Brandon?
I would like to say thank you for keeping the miniseries alive. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for keeping your original VHS recording of it. Just thanks. And thanks for supporting, the entire It universe. It's been an incredible ride. And even lately, the resurgence, the fact that pop culture kind of took it and ran with it, is great. I'm getting to travel. I get to go to conventions all the time now. There are a lot of people out there that want to know more. And, next month we're going to the UK again. We were there just in April last year, or actually March. But we're going to go to Manchester this time at a convention called For the Love of Horror. And they've got scare attractions and things like that there too. So it's going to be interesting to see a different spin on a horror convention. But yeah, I mean, I just want to say thanks. Thank you. Thank you for keeping us going.
Yeah, no, the horror conventions are definitely a lot. I feel like the horror fans, just in general, they definitely are very dedicated to, if they like a certain film or show or things like that, they, they're dedicated and they show up in droves. So I'm sure that's a lot of fun for you guys.
There's a lot of passion. And I mean, that's the thing that I didn't understand. First of all, I didn't know horror cons were a thing until we got our first couple of invites. And the community that surrounds these things, it's remarkable. And it's not just people that support one movie. There are people who, support the whole genre.
Yep.
And they support the community. They support each other. It's a fandom that actually supports its own fandom. Like, it's really hard to explain, but it's beautiful. And I really enjoy being a part of it. And being a part of it, I'm continually exposed to, other hidden gems in the genre, like the Rob Zombie films.
Yep.
Yes, I said hidden gems, but because they really are. Seeing the work of people that, have been in the business for 50, 60 years, people like Sid Haig. It's its own sort of subculture. You've got megastars within this subculture, people like Bill Moseley, and it's great to get to work with those guys, and it's great to see that much support for this kind of artistry. It really is. And you know what? Like, now that you can get a red camera for $10,000 instead of you could shoot your movie on an iPhone.
Yep.
The what do they call it? The democratization of media is allowing so many fans of that genre to start making their own movies, and they're coming up with great titles. So I'm happy to be a part of it in my own way. I think it's fantastic. It's great to help support that community too.
Well, guys, make sure, too, that, you guys go ahead and follow Brandon on Instagram at Brandon Crane TV. And also make sure to check out his website, brandoncrane.com, where you guys can get some sweet Haystack merchandise. And,
oh, yeah, the Haystack merch.
And, again, Brandon, I just want to really say thank you. I appreciate, you taking time out of your schedule to, come on the show and do this interview. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate it. I'm thankful for you too to keep this going, keep it alive. Hi, this is Brandon Crane from the original Stephen King's It miniseries, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.